Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cropper here. Let's talk about term limits. And it's not a particularly principled discussion that we're going to have, because term limits isn't really an issue of principle, it's just a practical issue in governance. So I'm only going to be able to hearken to traditions in ancient Greece. And in ancient Greece they had a tradition in some cities. During some periods in ancient Greece, there was this tradition where they would just point to a guy every year, and they would say, "Hey, Steve, this time it's your turn," and then that guy was the leader for the year. And then at the end of the year, names would be put in of the top 100 citizens or whatever. They didn't literally choose the guy off the street, and then one person would randomly be chose, and he would have 1 year of running the government. And originally, the idea of a tyrant was to put one of these guys in for 1 year and to give him unusual powers, to take away some of the limits that they normally set on that office. To say, for 1 year, we're going to let you have certain powers. Anyways, now, let's set ancient Greece aside. This, by the way, is where I make my memes. You go in here and you put your text, and then you just choose your meme, and they have lots of memes. You can go look at all the memes. Okay, we're not worried about that though. So, I think that we should have term limits. Now, one of the arguments against term limits is that we will have incompetent governance. I think you'll find on closer inspection that that's what we already have. That being the case, let's not allow that to be an argument against term limits. Now, there was this scandal in California, and they put term limits on, and all of a sudden, the entire legislature was made out of new people. And all of a sudden, none of the rules were known and all this stuff. So, there will certainly be a period where that happens. Now, this will be an utter disaster if the people all coming in just usher out the old system and destroy it. So I'm in favor of term limits in the post-Trump era, with the Supreme Court firmly in place for at least 10 or 20 years. That would be acceptable. Let's get this thing under control while we've got a few voters left around alive who still know how to vote properly, and hopefully keep the situation from going underground so that we can raise and teach a new generation, like this kid who is online, and she's 14 or whatever, and she does her political speech thing, right? Not Greta. That's a terrible thing. And where's Mini OAC? Why do we get to have Greta but not Mini OAC? This is garbage. Okay, so you see what would happen here. Politicians with term limits would just be regular Joes. It would just be Steve. Steve, it's your turn for the year. And you get in there for 4 years or 8 years. You know, if it's a 4-year term and you get 2 terms, or if it's a 2-year term you get 2 terms, it's 4, whatever. All that's just detail. Doesn't really matter too much. Alright, but with term limits, you get these guys in there for 40 years, and they've only written 3 bills. Now, we don't want them to write bills. We just want them to leave us alone, you know. And what would happen to the millionaire politicians under a system of term limits? That's what I propose right there. Now, perpetually incompetent government frightens some people. Woody's a little scared there about what it would mean. But as a matter of fact, we already have perpetually incompetent government. So the problem is just, does the government have too much power? And that's going to happen whether or not it's an old boys club. The government's going to have too much power. So let's stop them from getting comfortable in there. Let's turn it into a rotating seat of circus seats, whatever. Rotating. And just Just not let them get comfortable, not let them get power. They can run, and they got to go on and do something else. Go be a mayor of their town or whatever. If they have to do career political stuff. So we already have incompetent governance. Why not get the millionaire politicians out of the picture to boot? Not an issue of principle. Unless it is an issue of principle, I open it now to the Objectosphere. I submit to the Objectivist Pnyx. What do we say about term limits? I submit it as a Greek tradition to limit the political power of individual people. If you support what I do, you like the videos I make, please go to Patreon and make a $5 or $10 pledge and help me make it a regular thing that I can do these videos without worrying about feeling guilty about the time that I'm wasting and spending. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Cropper out.